y'all. So this is Elizabeth Off Grid. I am doing a live stream for number one because I have 3,000 subscribers. So I'm thanking you all for coming along on this adventure, for living in my vehicle and traveling sort of full time. I say I'm living my vehicle full time. I don't travel 100% of the time. A lot of times I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm also answering your questions. I feel like there's a lot of, I hope the road noise isn't too bad. I'm in a park kind of close to a highway just because there's nice airflow right here and there's no one right by me. Okay, I'm actually gonna also load this into my YouTube on my laptop so I can actually see, it disconnected from the internet. All right, hopefully I'll be able to see your comments. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, but I am gonna start answering the questions that already were asked. Some of these are questions that people ask me all the time in the comments, and some of them have even done videos specifically about them. But then I'm also gonna answer some questions that people posted, and then obviously if you have a question, feel free to post it here. So the first question is, and that's actually, there was a couple questions that got lost somehow, and I don't know how that happened. All right, anyway. So let's see. Do you have your heart set on getting an Outback? So a lot of times I've talked about how I want to get a Subaru Outback as my next vehicle. Right now, if you don't know, I'm in a Honda Civic, which is very difficult. You can see all the stuff piled up in here to actually have everything I need and also sleep in here. And I can't really cook inside very well. So my plan is to get a Subaru Outback. Maybe I might get a different Subaru. There's a number of different Subarus that are in that crossover like category, and they have different shapes. So the Subaru is the kind of the longest one, but then the Forester is actually a little bit taller on the inside and shorter, and they have the same cargo space more or less. So I'm gonna actually go sit inside and lay down in all of these to see what I think will be the best for not just me sleeping in and have my stuff, but also so I can cook inside, which is one of the big goals for that. So people ask about, do I want to get a van, or sometimes people ask if RV, someone specifically talking about getting a Ford Transit Connect, Chevy City Express, Nissan NV200, all these different cargo vans, like these smaller cargo vans, or people have even suggested large ones and RVs. So the short answer is no, that is not even on the table for me. I have looked at all the different options. I've looked at pickup trucks, RVs, and I mean pickup trucks with like a shell on the back or an actual camper on the back. I've looked at RVs and trailers that you can pull with a pickup truck. I've looked at vans. I've looked at SUVs, like kind of more full-on SUVs. And the thing is, a lot of things like a truck or an SUV are incredibly overpriced for what they are. There's a big premium added to those vehicles. The vans now have a so many people want to get those vans, it's hard to even find them. And there also can be a premium on those too. And for the vans, generally speaking, you don't have high clearance unless you get that put onto it, or you get a really, really expensive one. And the whole idea, like there's multiple ideas of getting a Subaru Outback. One of them is to have more space so I can cook inside and have access to all my stuff inside. But another reason to get it is so I can go places this car cannot go. And I've actually already messed up the bottom of my car, which I'll show you all sometime. So I want a vehicle that has higher clearance. The Subaru Outback is like over 9 inches, and even the Forester with the Wilderness Edition is over 9 inches. So, and has, a skid plate and all the things. So yes, there are pickup trucks, SUVs. There are some vans that have been retrofitted to have higher clearance, but you're paying a lot extra for that. And my philosophy is to have the kind of smallest and most simple setup that I can possibly get away with, that is comfortable for me and that I like, and is cost effective, and also is stealth. You have a camper van, you are not stealth. People know you're sleeping in it. You have some kind of RV situation, people know you're sleeping in it. But in a car, whether it is a Subaru Outback or a Honda Civic or an other SUV, then it is much more stealth, and I spend a lot of time in town, and I want to still be stealth. And then also there's Island, and there is the gas mileage issue too. All right, so a Honda Civic, a Subaru Outback, these all have car gas mileages, right? Anytime you start getting into the van, SUV, like big, huge, giant SUVs, and of course the RV situation, you're getting into not good gas mileage, worse and worse and worse. The bigger something is, the bigger the engine, the heavier it is, etc. And I like to travel a lot. So if you're someone who goes to Quartzsite and just stays there for 6 months, then gas mileage is not that big of a deal, and it's more important for you to have more space, probably, right? But that's not true for me. I like to travel around. And I actually really enjoy being in a very small space. Now, one question that kind of goes with this is there's a lot of people who ask about, I'm looking at some things where, oh, wouldn't it be so much better if you could stand up in your car? Yeah, I don't care, is the short answer to that. It really doesn't matter to me if I can stand up in my car. I'm perfectly happy in a very small space. I don't miss standing up at all. When I cook outside and I squat, and I've actually gotten to the point now where I can squat for long periods of time. So that's a wonderful ability to have, and so I'm fine doing that. And then inside the car, whenever I do get a Subaru Outback or whatever I end up getting, then I plan to cook inside, but I'll just sit crisscross, and that works out really well. At the most, I might get like a little one of those, yoga pillow, meditation pillow things. But to be honest, I can actually sit crisscross now and be totally comfortable for very long periods of time. So that needing to stand up really doesn't make a difference to me. Let's look at some other questions. Gas efficiency, would you recommend your vehicle for van life? I wouldn't have bought this to live in a car. I wouldn't have bought a Honda Civic because it's just not big enough. I had to take out all kinds of seats to be able to make something long enough for me to lay in, and it's barely long enough. I'm 5'7", and the space is 5'7". I only can fit in it because I sleep at kind of an angle, which is helpful for me to be able to breathe well at night. And so that was fine, and I can sleep like that, but I had to take out all the seats and do a lot of modifications. What I'm hoping with my next vehicles, with the Subaru Outback or Forester or whatever it is that I don't have to take out any seats. I don't have to modify it like structurally at all. And that's what I'm planning to at least start out with, is the most minimum possible build that you could possibly do. And that will make it a lot easier. So if someone was gonna get a vehicle for van life, I'm planning to get a Subaru Outback for my next car, or a Forester or something like that. I think getting if you don't have a vehicle, getting something used that is something that you can lay down in. What in the world? So I would totally get something that's like a hatchback or crossover, something where you can lay down. So, I would go, look at a whole bunch of different used cars, find something that you can lay down. So someone just said, I'm not too happy with YouTube. It's just kind of okay, going to catch up. I am on Instagram, so I'm Elizabeth Offgrid on Instagram. I tend to post, I don't usually post very many videos there. I tend to post more photos and a bunch of photos, as sets about my travels. So you can always go to Elizabeth Offgrid on Instagram to find me. Yeah, so the other question, clothes. Do you find some articles of clothing are unnecessary, like slippers? Yeah, I actually used to be a big slippers person, and I don't own slippers anymore, so that is a good example. I do have those socks, the kind you get in the hospital where they have the tread on the bottom, and those are actually my socks to sleep in, because I need to have socks to sleep in. So I don't walk on those outside, obviously, but yeah, so I have some things that are different like that, where I no longer have slippers and I do have socks. Most of my clothes are the same. Interestingly enough, I own more business casual clothes and nicer shoes and blouses and things because I'm out in the world more than I was before. Because before I worked from home and I stayed home a lot of the time and I wasn't really out in the world, where now I'm out in the world so much more and I have more stuff. I also have a lot more hiking gear. I have a lot more winter weather stuff, because obviously I don't need a lot of winter weather stuff when I wasn't going to winter weather. So it's actually more that I've bought more things as far as clothes go. The one thing that I don't have right now are things that need to be hand washed, because hand washing things and hanging them up doesn't work. If you have like an RV or something, you can hang it up in your shower, right? But like here, where am I hanging this up? It does not work. So yeah, so that's one of the big clothing things that's very different. So a question that I've gotten a gazillion times is, you own a rental, why don't you live in it? So first, I don't want to live in it. So for those of you who don't know, I own a house in a different state than where I'm at right now. It's not in California. And it is a 5-bedroom house that I bought for a family member to live in, and they no longer live there, and so I now rent it to strangers. And I bought it years and years ago, more than 10 years ago. I have to think about how many years ago it was, a long time. And it has been refinanced, so it's at a very, 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 very low interest rate, an infinitesimal interest rate at this point. So there's a couple things there. First, why don't I live in that house? Is it because I don't want to live in a 5-bedroom house in a place where I don't want to live? It just doesn't make any sense. Also, the rent goes to pay the mortgage, and then the interest, the mortgage premium, the interest on the mortgage, the insurance, the property taxes, the rental per people, and then also it has a bit extra for me. So I'm actually making money on it, except for when crazy things need to happen, like an entire new roof. But generally speaking, on a regular cash flow basis, I make a little bit of money. Obviously, I lived in there and no one was renting it from me, then I wouldn't be doing that. I have to come up with that myself. Also, I don't want to live there. It's way too big of a house. So another question that people ask all the time is, why don't you sell that house? Then you could pay off your debt and have all this money. People think that selling a house is really easy. Obviously, if you live somewhere like here in California, you can put up a literal meth lab house that's half burned, exploded, and you can sell it for more than $1 million. That is not true everywhere. In many places, it still takes months, if not a year or more, to sell a house. That house is a weird house because it's 5 bedrooms and the neighborhood is only 2-bedroom houses. So it is off the market, kind of like what the normalness is. It will take a while to sell. And while no one was living in it, I would have to just be paying the mortgage. I'm sure, have to put money into the house to get it sellable. And in that state, and in that area, you can't just sell a house as is. That doesn't exist in some places. You have to actually get an inspection, like the county inspects it, and you have to have an occupancy permit for the next people to get into it. And then if they don't like it, you have to put in money to fix things up, which is what happened when we bought the house all the years ago. And the people had to put in a new heating system and like expensive things. So for me to be able to sell that house, it will be a big, yeah, meth lab is funny, but it's true. It would be a big ramp up of money and time and energy, and I am not up for that right now. Also, they have a lease, and their lease isn't up until July, and I can't kick them out legally until the lease is up. So it is, and factoring in all the work that I would probably have to do, I actually wouldn't be able to pay off the mortgage, pay off all my debt. I would still be out some money. So it just doesn't make any sense to do. And I get that somebody else would make a different choice, and that's fine. I'm very capable of factoring in all these things and factoring the finances and the legalities of stuff, and have made a decision. It's just interesting how often people come in and tell me how I'm stupid. And I'm like, different people can make different choices, and it doesn't mean that somebody is wrong. It means that they value things differently and they evaluate things differently than another person. Some people also will want to know, like some people ask that, I should stop taking classes and use that money for other things, or use that time to do a side hustle. So I want to take classes. I'm learning for my future plans, and also doing things that I enjoy in my life. Everyone doesn't go to school just to make money. Some people go to school because they enjoy learning. It's different. I get that other people make different decisions, but it doesn't mean that mine is like wrong, or I'm not making one that financially makes sense. Because the thing is, if I wanted to make more money, I wouldn't start a side hustle. I would just work more in my law firm, right? But I'm choosing to not do so I can travel, so I can take classes, so I can do other things. And also build the YouTube businesses and build my future stuff that isn't even started yet, because I'm still in the preparatory phase. Someone wanted to know, why can't I just cook at my law firm? So my law firm is virtual, so there's no office. I've never had an outside office for my law firm. A long time ago, I owned a house and I had an outside office that was attached to the garage. But that's the most officiness I've ever had. So I don't meet with clients in person. I haven't met with a client in person more than 10 years ago. I actually can't remember, what, 15? Yeah, probably about 15 years ago was the last time I met a client in person, besides like having coffee, but I mean actually doing the legal work that way. Let's see. Oh, would I do this if finances weren't an issue? The short answer is yes. So now that I have lived in my car, I've realized how much I enjoy living in a car and living in a vehicle, living in a very, very tiny space and traveling all the time and having less stuff and living a life that's more simple. I am happier. I have better health. I make more money. I have more energy. I enjoy life more. So if I like literally won the lottery and like won one of these crazy $1 billion lotteries, I would still live in a vehicle. I would just buy a different one. It would be a different vehicle. It would be super nice, but I would still live in a vehicle for sure, even if money was completely no object. Now, it doesn't mean that I plan to only live in a vehicle forever. And this is another question that people ask is, you know, what is your kind of long-term plan? And I've actually made some videos about this, but the short answer is I do have kind of hypothetical plans in the sense of like I have a bunch of different ideas. So I own some raw land. I actually am thinking about buying over the, you know, eventually getting raw land in different places to kind of have permanent campsites that I own, if that makes sense. And then maybe on one of those places, build a tiny house. In the beginning, I won't do that. At first, I'll just put up a shed, you know, and have some stuff there. And then just use that as a permanent camping space, which would be really nice to have, you know, own a few acres in a bunch of different places and have permanent campsites where I can go and stay either as long as I want or for very long periods of time. You can't always stay as long as you want. A lot of places have rules about land where you can't be there and use it as a campsite forever because they want you to build a house. They don't want it to be this sketchy thing. Even in the middle of the freaking desert, even in the middle of nowhere, there are rules. It's kind of amazing. Now, do they enforce those rules? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But yeah, like that's kind of part of my plan. Also, maybe when that mortgage on that house is paid off, or maybe sometime in the future, I'll decide to sell it, buy, you know, a duplex or something somewhere else, and then live in one half and then rent out the other. I mean, I have a lot of ideas, things I might possibly do. One of the things too, it's a rental house. If you sell a rental house and you don't turn the thing right over into another rental, you have to pay taxes. It's not like when you sell a house that you live in. So, you know, it would be much more complicated selling that place than people might think it is. Yeah, people asking about, don't you want to have a van where you can stand up? Yeah, I don't care about that. So I know a lot of people do. A lot of people don't like the idea of always being a seated position, but I enjoy sitting. Sitting is nice. Obviously, I don't sit all the time. I get out and walk around and I do things, right? So it's not like I'm actually sitting all the time. I'm looking over at different questions. Oh yeah, the classes I take are online, so I might in the future have a time where I spend a semester, maybe even a summer in town, and I take some in-person classes. My son is in college and at university, and they might have like some time during the summer where they take the whole summer and go do some program somewhere or something. And if they do that, I'll babysit the cat sit the cat at their place. And then I would be in town for a summer and I could take classes at community college in person. And that would be kind of neat. I mean, a little break from the road. But that's just an idea. I don't know if I'll actually, like that, I don't know if they're going to do that. Most likely they will at least do things where they're gone for like a week or two. And then I will be cat sitting at their apartment. But it wouldn't be long enough to take classes in person. I'm trying to see if there was actually another set of questions that I can't remember what they were because they like disappeared from the system. And so I do not know what happened. Let's see. Yeah, so another question that people have asked over the months is, why don't you have a fridge? And some of you know the whole story about this, is I've tried having a fridge, I've tried having a cooler, I've tried all kinds of different things. So right this second, I do have a cooler back there. You can't see it, it's got too much stuff on top of it. There's actually no ice in it. I let the ice melt because the only thing left in there right this second is cheese, and it's sharp cheddar cheese. So I'm just gonna eat that up. It's not that warm, so it'll be fine. I enjoy having the new Yeti cooler that I got as a gift. Absolutely love it. It keeps ice so incredibly well. But there's a tiny bit of hassle, right? Buying the ice and stuff. I found the fridge that I got was actually, what I've realized is it was a little bit too big of a fridge than actually what I need. So like this Yeti cooler has a very small amount of space for food because you have to have a cooler has to be 2/3 full of ice for it to work efficiently. So I can really just take, you know, a bunch of vegetables, some lunch meat, some cheese. I mean, it's a fairly small amount of stuff that I will take, but it's really nice to have those things, right? And so the cooler I got, I mean, the fridge I got, I wasn't thinking about the fact that it doesn't need to have any ice in it. So, and also I was thinking about it from the perspective of living in an apartment with a fridge and having all the stuff you have in a fridge when you have a fridge, even a small apartment fridge, right? So I actually need a very tiny subsection of that to be able to live. So the fridge I got was really kind of too big for what I needed, and as such drew too much electricity for me to not be super annoyed. And also it broke. So, and that's the thing is, if you have a fridge that breaks, whether you live in a house or apartment or in a vehicle, that is an extravaganza. It sucks to have a fridge break. So my thought is, for right now, I'm just going to either do shelf stable everything, which I've gotten used to now and is actually not that hard, or having a cooler, because ice is easy and straightforward. I think the fridge is really, really important if you go to places and stay there for long periods of time, such that going and getting ice is very annoying. So if you're, you know, like the Quartzsite thing, you go to Quartzsite, you stay at a camp for 6 months, and yeah, you go in town sometimes, you have to get groceries, whatever, but you don't want to have to go into town every couple of days to get ice. Then that actually makes sense to have a fridge and have an electrical system and have solar panel, right? That can be a wonderful system, especially if you're in the middle of the desert and it's sunny a fair amount of the time. I don't even have I have a solar panel that actually works great. I don't even have it in my car right now, and I actually usually don't take it with me because it's very rare where I'm stopped for a long period of time where using the solar panel makes sense. What I usually do for my electrical is I just plug the battery into the car and let the car recharge it, because I'm effectively driving around something that can charge up at things, right? A generator, a gas generator. Well, because of that though, it means that I can't really create a kind of closed loop system with a fridge and a battery and a solar panel, because I'm moving from place to place, because I don't have solar on the roof. There's another question that people ask all the time. So why don't you put a roof rack on? Why don't you put solar on the roof? Why don't you do the films on all your windows to black out your windows? You know, the short answer is I'm not doing any more modifications to this vehicle because I plan to keep it only for the next less than a year, about a year probably. So it doesn't make sense to put any more money into this. I'm just dealing with it how it is. And then whenever I get my next vehicle, one of the first things I'm going to do is black out the windows and it'll most likely come with a roof rack, and then put a box on the roof and put stuff up there. Like that'll be some of the first things I do, and then have a solar panel on the roof. I get those are all great ideas, but I don't want to put any more money into this vehicle because this is just the vehicle for me to have until I get the next one. So I'm just running this one as simple as I can possibly do. And then in the next vehicle that I will have more complexity. But yeah, when I'm going to do the windows and put on a thing on the roof and solar panel on the roof, that'll be like the first things I do when I get my next vehicle. And when I do that, that will make a big difference. The other thing what I plan to do is I plan to just literally take everything in this car and move it in the next vehicle and just live like that for a while. I'll have to get a different foam thing to sleep on because this one is in pieces and it sucks, whatever. It doesn't suck from a cushiony perspective. It sucks because it's in pieces and it spreads apart. So I will get a different piece of foam for my bed. Everything else will just be this stuff moved into there, and then I'll see how that goes. And then I'll make modifications to it that need to be done. But yeah, I'll definitely do the windows and the roof. The same kind of thing with, like, you can see this, see how this is shiny? So that's unfortunate, because if I sleep somewhere where there's like a light in a certain way, and or if it's wet or whatever, then that can be very shiny and obvious that it's a covering and it's not just like blackout windows. So I would, if I was gonna change my window coverings, which I'm not, I would make this be more of a matte, like fabric-y finish, so it's less obvious. I'm also thinking that for my next vehicle, I'm going to have also curtains, and to make it be so it actually is blacked out, and then have a curtain that goes here in between the front and the back, and I'll leave the passenger seat there. It would be nice to have a passenger seat, because there have been times where I couldn't give someone a ride. Someone couldn't go with me somewhere. And, you know, like my significant other was sick. I could have driven their truck, obviously, but you know, there's things like that where not being able to give someone a ride does kind of suck a little bit. There's no other option for here. I couldn't sleep any other way. But so my next vehicle, I do plan to keep the passenger seat in. And then also kind of put a curtain here so it's separated out the front and the back. It actually will add a stealthy aspect to my sleeping and stuff. And then in the beginning, I won't take out the back seats until I realize if I need to. So if you guys have any other questions, let me know. I got through most of the big ones that people ask. One person asked, how do you make money living in a car? I have a law firm, so I do legal work. My biggest chunk of revenue is through the legal work that I do for clients. I file trademarks and stuff. I have a Patreon for that business. I also do consultations for that business as a lawyer. And then I have the second biggest thing of income is through my YouTube channels. This one makes just a tiny bit of money. My other YouTube channel makes a couple grand a month. So those are the ways I make money. And like I said before, I do make more money now than before I lived in a car. And the big reason is because I have more energy and I can work more. Because I'm happier, I guess, and healthier and such. All right, I am going to sign off in a second, unless you have more questions. And so thank you all for subscribing and saying hi. What type of van car will be next purchase? My plan is to get a Subaru Outback, maybe a Forester. That's what I'm planning to get. Maybe a Wilderness Edition. That's what I would really like, but we'll see. There's a rumor that Subarus might do hybrids for 2025. If they do, I might actually buy a new car and buy the hybrid, but that's still just a rumor. We'll see if it actually happens. All right, thank you all for watching. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.